Today we'll be looking at the South Burnett Road railroad crossing. And if you look into the distance, you can see that there are two railroad crossings on this street. The one in the distance is a crossing that leads to a train yard, and it only receives one train per week, making deliveries to a factory. This is crossing number 527974S. It is on the main line, and the speed limit is 50 miles per hour through here. The typical speed is between 40 and 50. Like most crossings in Springfield, Ohio, the north side has a bell, but the south side does not. This has two cantilevers with two gate mechanisms that have lights on the back sides of them. If you look closely, on the south side of the crossing is mounted a sign that warns the driver if the quiet zone is malfunctioning. Only if the wayside horn doesn't work is the driver allowed to blow the horn. I might actually make one of these for the game in the future, since making a flashing X wouldn't be too difficult. Here you can see the loudspeaker that produces the horn sound. Now heading south toward the other crossing, you can see that there are power utility wires really close to the road. I'll show you why that's important later. Also, I measured the width of this road, and it happens to be 52 feet wide. I could not find a 4-lane road that was that wide in the game, so I made one from scratch. This is the other crossing on South Burnett Road. This is crossing number 258792M. This crossing speed limit is only 10 miles per hour, as it leads to a siding at the end of the line, which in turn leads to a factory. This crossing only receives one train per week. Now, the gate mechanism is tilted slightly because there are power utility wires really close to the road, and there wasn't enough room for it to go up at a 90-degree angle, so it locks at a slight angle when it's in an upright position. For that reason, I had to use ATLS gates because none of the TRC gates let me tilt it to a position where it would be at an angle when fully raised. Now, one thing that's interesting about this crossing is that it has a mix of equipment. On the north side it has a modern cantilever, but on the south side it has a much older style of cantilever. Another thing that's weird is that the backlights are mounted on the cantilever and not on the gate mechanism. This is rather unusual. Okay, here you can see a closer look at the gate mechanism, which completely masks the backlights. And here's another closer look at the tilted gate mechanism. And this cantilever also has side lights. Or at least it does as of October 2017. The railroad crossing locator app that I have says that it doesn't have side lights equipped. Okay, without further ado, let's test these crossings out in Trainz. Now, I'm going to test the ATLS one out first because, as we all know, especially people who have been with my channel for a while, ATLS crossings always give me trouble on Trainz 2019, so it'll be really interesting to see how far I can get with these crossings this time around. You know, I find it funny that these traffic stoppers always work in surveyor but refuse to work in driver. Alright, all I did was restart the game and it worked this time. I changed nothing about the crossing. So I guess when in doubt, just restart the game. However, let's see if this works consistently. I called a maintenance of way train to this crossing in order to check up on it and see if it's still working. So let's see how well that goes. He should be here shortly. Let's see if the driver commands can turn the crossing on. Nope, not even the driving commands turn the crossing on. It's just completely blind to this train. Well, since restarting the game worked the first time, let's restart it again and see if it works this time. I have another train at the crossing, but I'm going to stop at this crossing just in case it decides not to work randomly this time again as well. Because, as we all know, the ATLS only works when it wants to in Trainz 2019. Okay, you can see I'm slowly approaching the crossing. Since I know it probably isn't going to work, I'm very cautiously approaching this crossing at a speed where I'm prepared to stop, just in case something doesn't work. By the way, we're way past the trigger that should have turned it on. Alright, to assure you that I do have the crossing set up correctly, this is trigger 1 that's supposed to turn the crossing on. It's set to channel 1, it's a 4 trigger system. This is trigger 2 that's supposed to turn the crossing off in the opposite direction, channel 1, 4 trigger system for 2-way running. Third trigger is supposed to turn the crossing off in this current direction that I'm facing, 4 trigger system, channel 1. Fourth trigger is supposed to turn the crossing on in the opposite direction, 2-way running, 4 trigger system, channel 1. And then let's go to the slaves and the controller. The controller is set to channel 1, level crossing mode. And then if we go to the slave triggers, They're all set to channel 1 level crossing mode, and they all detect the crossings that are in front of them, as you can see. So why won't this crossing work in driver mode? It doesn't make any sense. Normally, when you have everything set up correctly, you would expect it to work the way it's supposed to, wouldn't you? But for some reason, these ATLS systems refuse to work correctly, even though everything is set up correctly. It's so frustrating. Here is the slave trigger for the traffic stopper. Level crossing mode, channel 1, and it detects the traffic stopper. So can someone please tell me why it won't work? Especially since it works in Surveyor. You know what, forget the ATLS crossing right now. Let's test the TRC crossing. At least it's more reliable and I can expect it to work every time, right? Right? Okay, can someone please tell me what's the point of patching a game if you're going to make it worse functionally? Because I strictly remember these cantilevers working in the past, but ever since the latest patch, now all of a sudden they will not work. I cannot get these to work to save my life. So now I gotta figure out why these cantilevers won't work either, even though TRC has always been consistently functional in the past. So please, stop patching the game unless you make it better functionally. I'm really tired of patches making things worse and making things less functional. Anyway, let's see if I can find a cantilever to replace these, one that'll actually flash correctly. Well, I restarted the game and the flashers still aren't working, even though that used to work in the past. Well, let's try something else, I guess. sometimes if you delete a cantilever and place it back, it'll work again. So let's try that. I'm going to delete it, put it back on the ground, and then rename it, and then reset the game and see if that works. Same thing for this cantilever. It was already named correctly the way it should be. By the way, I'd like to point out that I paid for these cantilevers, so if they don't work, I will be completely disappointed in this game. Because I'm pretty sure these are the ones that cost me money, or were they freeware? I really don't remember. Either way, I expect them to work anyway because they've worked in the past. Okay, they've been reinstalled and renamed, and I'm going to save the game 10 times just to make sure it remembers that these crossings are here. And now, let's reset the route. Okay, this game is really starting to try my patience. I just placed these cantilevers back on the track, but it only recognizes the 1-lane cantilever. It won't recognize the 2-lane one. Starting to lose my patience with this game. Okay, I tried adding them to the route again, and then resaving the game, and then restarting the game, and it's still not recognizing them. I mean, come on! Are we just not allowed to use 2-lane TRC cantilevers anymore? Is that what it is? Well, I deleted that 2-lane cantilever and tried to add it back again, and the game still won't recognize it. Either the game or the controller, one of those. I don't know whose fault it is that this crossing won't get recognized by the controller. All I know is that I did exactly what I usually do for TRC crossings. That usually works, and now it isn't working. Okay, I don't know how many times I've tried to get this crossing to recognize this cantilever, but for some reason it's flat out refusing to. Alright, I tried restarting the game, and again it still won't recognize this cantilever. By the way, this is a new bus I'm working on for the American traffic region I made in the past. And this one will have a night mode, unlike the last bus that I uploaded to the download station. Let me put it in night mode real quick so I can show you what I mean. And I'm also going to try to make a drivable version of it in the future that'll even allow you to ride inside it. So yeah, the lights come on at night. The interior lights up, sort of. If you can call that lighting up. Still a bit limited. The dashboard was supposed to light up too. Oh wait, it does. You just have to have the camera at the right angle. And of course the headlights come on too. Let me move the camera a bit so I can show you the cab. So yeah, you're actually going to be able to drive inside that, assuming the camera can fit inside it. I'm trying to get it at the right angle so I can show you the dashboard. Okay, okay, there it is. That's pretty much what I expect the dashboard to look like at night, so you can actually see the gauges. Though, it won't really mean anything because they won't be animated anyway. I have not learned how to animate dashboards just yet. Now, let's get back to that TRC crossing and see if it'll work yet. Okay, after several tries, pointlessly trying to get this cantilever to get recognized by the game, I decided to give up and use a different cantilever. The only reason I didn't want to use this one from the get-go is because the lights flash faster than the rest of the cantilevers and crossing devices, so it would just look a little weird. But at this point, I'm pretty much desperate. It's the only 2-lane cantilever that the game will actually recognize. And I know this because I have another similar cantilever somewhere else on this route, and that one definitely has been working thus far. Since I inevitably had to restart the route anyway, let's see if that railroad crossing on the south side of the road is working yet. This is a very nice cab, actually. It even has cab signaling. That's cool. Even has a control panel in the back. So anyway, yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and test that railroad crossing out again. I'm still gonna have to stop in front of it just in case it refuses to operate like it has been doing in the past. Amazing, the game actually decided it wanted to get this crossing to work at random this time. That hardly ever happens, as you've seen in the past with me constantly trying to get this crossing to turn on. Let's see if it's consistent though. Even though in the past it's proven not to be. Let's try operating it in the opposite direction this time. Alright, those few times it worked, so I'm willing to leave it at that. However, I still don't fully trust the ATLS system because it's already proven to be inconsistent. So, I'm still probably going to have all trains stop at this crossing before crossing it, just to make sure it's going to activate before I attempt to cross it.